And a sincere thanks from Team HDFC Credila and the people who made it happen. At the same time, we would like to thank on behalf of our applicants as well, students who have shown interest in HDFC Credila, and all the applicants who are registered with us as of now. And I'm sure on various platforms we did float for this event, and all the viewers who are there with us. See how many we would be able to accommodate. There might be some, any of the viewers, any of the listeners, if you have any question about your study abroad, about the financial planning, about any of the topics, right, that you would like me to cover, that you would like me to focus upon, please feel free to barge in, right? We are here to solve your queries. We are here to address your concerns, your apprehensions about studying abroad with regards to this recent pandemic situation that has happened globally. We'll be open to take questions about financial management, about your counseling stuff. I'm sure most of you would have your own counselors, right? Then again, I mean, it doesn't harm to take a second opinion. People who are there on screen are industry experts. They have been domain expert for quite some time. They represent some of the biggest names that we have in India, right? Robert has joined us from Australia. So, you know, and we are going to cater to every audience, right? Whether it's US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, you name it, and our experts will be eager to help you out with your queries. So thank you so much, panelists, again for joining me today. I again welcome all of you. So, you know, I think we'll start with the changes, right? So till March, I think things were more or less going on in a linear fashion, and then the disruption happened in terms of the pandemic. All of a sudden, all hell breaks loose, right? Airlines are suspended, flights are suspended. We see a lot of bans on movement, national as well as international. So, you know, what would be your you know, we'll start with maybe Robert, who's sitting in Australia. So, Robert, how do you think that this pandemic would have affected overall student sentiments, right? Uh, we may be, I mean, you may speak about Australia, you may speak about Canada, USA, but how do you think that students have overall absorbed the situation? As far as my introduction goes, as far as HDFC Credila's introduction goes, of course, I mean, a lot of students would have deferred, but I don't see that, you know, the interest has ebbed out. The interest is very much there. The students still want to go ahead. But of course, you guys are the experts. So how do you think the students are taking this whole situation? Yeah,
Yeah,
Robert.
yeah. Hitesh and the team, this COVID-19 pandemic is absolutely unfortunate. Everyone in the world, in every profession, is affected one way or the other. However, when we talk of our industry, international education, I guess we are one of the most affected industries, and that throws the plans of students and their parents completely in disarray. We are aware that all international countries, the borders are closed. There are no international flights operating. And even when we look at India, our final semester or our final year exams, our year 12 exams, everything has been disrupted. Now, in a student's mind, 6 months is a very long time. No student or no parent of a student wants them to waste any time. However, because we are in a pandemic and it's affecting the whole world, the first thing that we have to understand is plans will have to be shifted to a later point of time, maybe later in the year in 2020 or in early 2021. Now that I'm sure that's causing a lot of anxiety and concern among parents. You know, we are in a situation where we just can't plan too much. But it's also affecting the current international students in in countries like US, Australia, UK, Canada, students are being affected because the current international students are studying online, and this is not something they expected. They are also, many countries are under lockdown. So
Mm-hmm.
I think apart from affecting the plans, it's also affecting the mental health and is
Yeah.
causing a bit of stress and anxiety to students and parents.
But you would ratify it and you'll approve of it, Robert, that there's no need to panic, right? Of course, I mean, as you said, rightly said, that the students may kind of defer, and of course, I mean, there is a certain amount of anxiety in the system, but there is no reason why the students should panic, right?
Well, I mean, we cannot avoid a certain amount of stress and panic. But
Mm-hmm.
as time goes by, and when every
Mm-hmm.
student understands he is not the only one affected,
Mm-hmm.
students intending to go to any country in the world are
Mm-hmm.
affected. So when
Mm-hmm.
this becomes something which is affecting every prospective international student, I
Mm-hmm.
think uh, when students look at it broadly and parents look at it from a very positive perspective, there's really no need to panic because the good times will come back. It's just a matter of time.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, thank you, thanks, Robert. I do feel it's a big assurance. So, Vipin, what do you think, right? So, Robert said that there is, of course, I mean, there is a certain amount of stress which is there in the system, but of course, I mean, good times will definitely be here. So, how would you take it up?
So good morning to all of you. We have been following this, monitoring this situation closely, and we have been doing a lot of surveys, and we found out that around 56.1% students still have their plans unchanged, and around 15% are interested in studying, taking their programs online, and around 14.5% of the students have dropped, uh, and many of the students, around 14.5% students, are not interested in going for online education. Because since we are living in a very dynamic and unprecedented situation, so universities are also adopting to this situation, and many of them have started going for delivering online programs. Some are offering hybrid programs, like they'll be delivering the large class sessions online, and only the classroom sessions with 15 to 20 students they'll be accommodating face to face. And there is, as Mr. Robert said, there is some anxiety amongst the students because they have invested a lot of time, and many of the students don't have backup. They have invested time in preparing for IELTS, CRE, GMAT exams. But because of the situation, the universities have relaxed their entry criteria as well. Like, since they are expecting a less footfall over there, they have
Mm-hmm.
relaxed the criteria. They have reduced the entry requirements. They don't require the hard copy transcripts, letter of recommendations, waiver.
Mm-hmm.
The universities have provided GRE, GMAT things. So um, students are able to get admits from higher rank universities, and I see that still the interest level among the students is very high, and they
Is
are
very
just
high.
deferring
Right.
plans, and they are not altogether dropping out plans because of all
Great,
these
great.
reasons.
Yeah, great, great. Thank you. Thanks. So, I'll go to Kanan now. Right. So, what do you think? Right. So, and especially in western part of the country, and as well as in Punjab region, there are a lot of students who actually like to opt for Canada as a destination, right? And I'm sure Kanan is one of the go-getters, right? The top destinations wherein students would like to apply for. So, what do you think? What would be the timelines like? Say, as Robert has said and Vipin has kind of ratified it, that things may slow down for a bit, right? So we are sitting in maybe July, right? So when do you think students who aspire for Canada or for US for that matter, Americas, right? What would be the timelines for them? When would they? When can they expect for the admits to start coming? When can they expect that visas will start processing? and when would they be getting, I-20s in case of US universities? What's your take on that?
Thank you so much, Hitesh, for letting us in as one of the panelists. Good morning, everyone, for joining in. So the question is quite interesting and it is also quite subjective. It varies a lot. To be very honest, I would say that the psyche of the students in all parts of this country varies a lot. Very honestly, people in the western part of India, they are a bit of calculative. To be honest, they are not going, all guns blazing. They are not too desperate. कि हाँ जाना ही है. They are not of that sort. They'll calculate. They'll calculate their risks. They'll health comes first. To be honest, the part of country that we sit in, here, Gujarat, parents won't risk their children stepping out of their homes. They won't let their child travel from Baroda to Surat also. So forget about traveling from Baroda to Toronto all the day. So yes, parents are taking a lot of caution. We feel that being 24 years in the industry now, this has also become our moral responsibility to guide the parents and students regarding the current situation that the US and Canadian administration is facing in terms of controlling and handling this pandemic. So as far as we know, yes, till 31st July, we deal a lot in Canada. 80% of our business volume is Canada. So till 31st July, Canada has closed the borders even for US. Forget about India. Right now, we are witnessing a jump of 25,000 plus cases every day here. So we expect that September intake, yes, either it's going to be offered online or in the form of blended form of education. Almost all the universities and colleges in Canada have agreed for that. January intake is very much on its course. Most of the universities have agreed that they are going as per the schedule. There are no plans to delay or even cancel the January 2021 intake. Admissions are happening. Thanks to HDFC Credila that they are supporting our students a lot. And even in this situation, for September 2020, we have had more than 550 wire transfers till now. The numbers used to be much higher if this situation was not prevailing as of now. But even in this situation, we've got 550 plus wire transfers as of now. And for January, we see a lot of excitement and a lot of zeal with the students when it comes to applying. Students are coming for application. Tuition fees transfer is taking place. GIC is taking place. Medical examination is taking place. It is just that we and student fraternity, we are waiting for the VFS to open so that the biometric can happen and the situations can move further. We are just keeping our
When do you
fingers.
expect the biometrics to start? When do you expect the biometrics to start?
Initially, in the month of April, we had a word from one of the leading community colleges of Canada based in Toronto that 30th of June, VFS in India would start functioning. But that did not happen. It's more than a week. Yes, day before yesterday, I guess most of the VFS for England, Ireland, and all those countries started. So by second or third week of this month, we predict that yes, VFS centers for Canada should start functioning even on a partial basis, so that the process does not stop here anywhere. And ETAs are very much on the course. The visitor visas are getting processed right now for Canada. So for student visas, within a week or two, I guess, touch wood, we should be receiving a very positive news.
Fantastic. So I would sum it up, aptly put by him that they do expect that for Canada, student visas should start coming in maybe second or third week of July. The processing should start. And you're right, we have received a couple of questions as well. Right. So there is a viewer, he has asked that he has applied for Centennial College, Canada, September intake. Of course, I mean he has some queries about financial management. I'll ask my team to take care of that query per se. But yes, even at HDFC Credila, we have had a lot of students for Canada who have taken disbursements and who have made payments, as you rightly put, right? So by second or third week, we expect that the processing should start for biometrics.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so again, I'll come to you, ma'am. That see, rightly put by him, and I do expect that it should start happen sooner than later because Canada is one of, I mean, Canada has been growing by leaps and bounds, as compared to US where the numbers have come down gradually over a period of time. So, what do you think about US? How it's going to shape up, right? So, because Canada at least gives some information. Canada, we've seen that universities have been taking fees, GICs are being paid. US is like a black box as of now, right? So, are you able to decipher any information out of it? What do you, as a lender, even I'm worried, right? Because I have more than 6,500 sanctioned loans, right? And I will disburse them, right? So when do you think I'll get to disburse those loans?
Good morning, Hitesh, and good morning, everybody. And I'm representing Valmiki Group today, and Mr. Ganesh Valmiki, who's the chairman, due to network issues, were not available to attend. So my name is Nirupama Das. And coming to Hitesh, what he just explained, US today is just like any other worst hit countries in terms of COVID-19 pandemic, and day by day the situation in the US is definitely changing, and we've all seen a very bad day yesterday. I think there was all news everywhere that the US is now asking students who are in the US to go back to their home countries in case their universities are not offering them a face-to-face study or a hybrid study or something like that. So I think US, what we see since the effect of COVID-19, many students have, of course, US has always been a top destination for Indian students. And since we are based out of South India in Hyderabad, which is one of the largest cities to send students to the US, we still see a lot of interest amongst students. We had a lot of questions yesterday when students were worried about, the new students who are probably now looking at fall 2020. Should we kind of accept an enrollment, or should we kind of wait and watch? Because I think it's all it's of course, in my opinion, that it's more or less politically managed right now, because few weeks ago the H1Bs, there was a stop on that. There was news around H1B not being permitted right now, and then later now we get to know that US students in the US are asked to return. And so of course there's a lot of ambiguity about US as a destination for fall 2020. But the good news is that the universities have already geared up. I mean, the good universities who look at Indian students as their major international mobility crowd, they definitely have geared up to offer a lot of hybrid pattern of education, and that's a very good thing to bank on for students who are really looking at US as a destination to study, because hybrid model allows a student to just take.
Pardon my interruption. Hybrid would mean online and the digital dissemination,
Probably
right?
it would be a mix. It is a mix of students can start taking online education with 1 or 2 credits, because even in the F1 status, students are allowed to take up to 3 credits online, and that will still be considered as an F1 status that allows them to eligible for the CPTs, OPTs, and they could still be maintained and as an F1 student. So having said that, under a hybrid model, students will be allowed to take up to 3 credits online. And once logistics are in place and the campus is open to accept students physically, the students can continue the rest of the course by doing an in-person classes. So that still maintains the students their F1 status. So there's nothing to worry for an incoming student now, because they should be very cautious about selecting a course or a university that allows a hybrid pattern of learning, rather than, because some universities have complete online, which means the entire course to be taught online. We don't recommend students to be choosing such courses, but to choose courses that have a hybrid pattern of learning.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks, Nirupama. Yeah, thanks a lot. So Robert, I have a question, right? So, I mean, a viewer has written that he did get admission for MS degree in US, right? But because of US being a black box, or I mean, little information is coming out of US, he's thinking that whether he should apply to other countries as well. So I have related, yeah.
Because just following one of the just following one of the recent surveys, almost, I would say, 54%, close to 50 to 55% students are considering to choose other destinations other than their initial destination that they were interested for. So I just now leave it to Mr. Robert to answer the rest of it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what we are going to see is there is a positive for Indian students, no matter which country they choose. This is a great marketing opportunity and a tremendous advantage for Indian students, Because we know in most countries, the Chinese are the largest group of international students, and Indians are normally second. There are a few countries where Indians are one and Chinese are number two. But if you look in majority of countries today, the top five English-speaking countries, the US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, I think there's going to be some reluctance um, in accepting some maybe students from China, but also reluctance on the Chinese government in trying to restrict their students from going overseas. Now, universities around the world will still have to function, and international education is one of the biggest income earners for many of these countries. So they will look at various other markets, and definitely India is the top priority for them right now. Having
Right.
said that,
Yeah, yeah.
yes, good. Yeah.
No, no,
Having
Robert,
said
please,
that,
please tell me.
uh,
Hmm.
having said that, um, international education, I think India is one of the few countries where parents get involved in their son or daughter's education, right from the country they choose to the funding. Are they going for an education loan? Are they its own funds? So, I mean, Indian parents are very active. Not many countries in the world, parents really get involved. And I think parents will look at the top priority for 2020, 2021 will be safety. So countries, I mean, not being biased to any country, but a country which has a lot of coronavirus cases, COVID-19 cases, and rapidly growing, it's very natural. Parents will want their children to avoid that destination at least for the next year or two till things settle down. And as a result, we can see a shift to destinations which may not have been their original choice at this point.
Okay, but do you endorse it? So suppose if I, as a student, if I got an admission from US university, and owing to security concerns, owing to maybe health concerns, do you recommend that as a student I should look out for Canada maybe, or country like UK or Australia? Should I look out,
Well,
or should I wait for information to come from US?
well, I think students should definitely look at multiple destinations. They have to do a good comparison. As long as they're getting a program of their choice with the right subjects and good opportunities for them while they are studying and after their studies. I would advise all students to look at multiple destinations. Ultimately, they can only choose one. Because if you're going to put off your plans, you've lost almost 9 months in 2020. There's no assurance that 2021 is going to be back to normal. Could be 2022, 2023, when if the vaccine is there and things return to normal. And I don't think students can afford to delay their plans so long. That's number one. Number two, if you look at students intending to pursue a master's degree overseas, COVID-19 has also impacted the employment situation in India and around the world. In a
Yeah.
normal time, they may have just thought of working for 1 or 2 years and then postponing their plan. There's not going to be much of employment opportunities around. So rather
Hmm.
than wasting time in India or just trying to go to the country of which was the original decision, I think it's fair enough that they consider other choices as well, other destinations.
Okay, okay, great, great. Thanks, Robert. Vipin, I would like to come back. So we have a question. It's again related to what we've been discussing. That how would the CPT and summer internship will be affected in case of spring semester? So suppose if I defer my, so suppose if I've received an admit for say fall 2020, and if I defer to spring, right? So will my chances of getting a CPT be affected? Because I mean, US needs like 9 months of you have to be on the US soil for 9 months. So you think that the thing is going to change, that thing is going to be edited, or the students are going to get some favor out of US legislators?
So, yes, if they postpone the intake to spring intake, then CPT, because the student has to study minimum 9 months and then only he can apply for CPT. So that's going to the CPT will get affected if the student defer to spring intake.
Okay. Yeah. Anupam, would you have any thought on that? Again on CPT part?
Yeah, Mr. Vipin, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
So I was saying that on CPT, US bound students who will be getting CPT, who will be opting for their CPT, right? So do you think if they choose spring intake, will it affect their chances of getting a CPT?
I think some US specialists can answer this question because I'm not very much into it.
Yeah, Nirupama.
Yes. So typically, it's usually understood that if students go in fall 2020, there are high chances that it covers a CPT period for them, is because they have 2 semesters back to back, and it probably covers 9 months of study year. But when they go in spring, there is a big challenge because they encounter a summer break. They encounter a summer break, so that definitely has some impact on their CPTs. So it is recommended for students that they should be considering to start online for fall, and be able to move to January for an in-person learning in order to be eligible for a CPT in future. Yes. So we recommend students.
I'm a student, and I happen to be a very vulnerable student, right? Right. So suppose if I take a digital program, if I opt for the digital discourse as of now, and subsequently the university says, okay, Hitesh, since the COVID situation has not abated and India still happens to be the hotspot of corona infections, we would like second semester also to be extended as through digital discourse, right? That would kill me as a student, right? Because then it's like I would have spent some 8 to 10 lakh rupees, right, studying digitally, and then again the chance of visa goes out of the window. And do you think this sort of risk might affect students?
Absolutely, it will affect students, and that's what we've been telling students, that it's very important for you to understand that how these courses are going to be offered, because as you rightly said, we are very unsure about Jan 21 as well as we speak today. We're really not sure whether Jan would continue to be like this, or it could be worse, or it can be good as well. So we really don't know. So we kind of tell students, if you're my student, I would have told you the same thing. I would have told you that there's no harm in starting online, but if it goes beyond 3 courses, it could get difficult for you to apply for a CPT. So we'll have to be cautious about telling students that either you start with 1 course, 2 course, so that you continue doing the 3 course later, 3rd course in the spring intake. So we'll have to make that kind of a choice for students and tell students, because if they do more than 3 courses of 3 courses online, that definitely will have an impact on their CPT.
Sure. I get that. So, I would like to understand the Canada perspective of it, right? So, Karan, you can tell me that, students who have already paid the GIC, students who have already paid the tuition fee, right? And suppose, how do you see that, the visa regime is going to be unfolded? Whether you think that students who already know they'll have a good chance of getting the visa, or you think that we can see a lot of visa declines because situation in India is still quite delicate. We still see a lot of cases on a daily basis. The number is actually going exponentially. The curve is far from getting flattened. It is actually getting patterning, right? So how do you think that Canada is going to behave? Regime is Canada is going to behave? Are we going to get more visa approvals, or there can be declines, or it can be deferment?
Correct. So there are multiple situations that we would have to consider here. First of all, I would like to double endorse what Mr. Robert did mention earlier, that yes, most of the countries are becoming more and more apprehensive in terms of recruiting the students from Chinese origin. To be very honest, the world now knows the real perspective. And as far as India is concerned, yes, we see this situation, doing a great favor to Indian students in terms of the universities worldwide being positive, having a positive outlook towards us. Now, as far as Canada is concerned, we do give more than a couple of options to the students. First of all, the September intake is going online. For more than 95% of the colleges or universities, it is online. There's no doubt about that. Now, if the student has got just 1 year of program. Because if the student pursues 1 year of program, then he's going to study 2 semesters and he's eligible to receive 1 year of postgraduate work permit in Canada. So technically, if the student finishes September and January digitally here in his home country before he flies to Canada, there is no scope for him to apply for the postgraduate work permit. So if the students have applied for 1 year programs, postgraduate diploma programs, we ask all such students to either defer their programs to the next available intakes or to opt for a 2 year program or a 1+1 combination of program. So that is how they can at least safeguard their chances of applying for the postgraduate work permit. Now, Canada as a country has always, ranked healthcare and education. They always give a lot of prominence to these two sectors. So, if it is about the healthcare of the locals in Canada, Canada is going to be very, 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 calculative. They are going to scrutinize this situation globally. And trust me, if the situations don't improve here in India, they would, delay our recruitment, the recruitment of our students at least for an intake or two. So that is where I said, let us have our fingers crossed that situation improves here in India. Let us, expect that flattening of the curve in terms of the rising COVID-19 cases. January intake, to be honest, in Canadian institutions is happening. Students are applying. We can expect a rise in the number of visas because there's not going to be a lot of Chinese students who are going to travel to Canada, at least for the next couple of years. So at least for the next 5 to 6 semesters, Indian students have got a great future if they are thinking to apply into Canada. That is what even the mathematics tells us.
Yep. Thanks. Vipin, would you like to add to what he said? That especially in terms of Canada, and again we are getting a lot of questions. Students are asking that if the visa gets declined or if the visa dates get delayed, right? It's a potential financial loss for them, right? So, I mean, what would your suggestion would be to the students?
Adding to Mr. Shah said. So many of the students are not interested in going for a complete online program, and if they don't have visa in hand, they cannot even start online classes. So I foresee in the because Indians contribute to a huge number in Canadian like education, overseas education. So I foresee that the number of visa grants would be increased because ultimately it is also a source of income, and Canada being a very big country, second largest country, they require a lot of immigrants. They require a skills shortage, skilled manpower in many fields. So I foresee that the number of visas would get increased, and also as said earlier, the Chinese, since the Chinese students may decline, and governments may be apprehensive to grant visas to the Chinese candidates. So definitely they'll have to compensate that number from somewhere. And I foresee that that India would be a major gain. Indian students would be major gainer from this aspect.
Okay, so you're saying that India can be indirect beneficiary, right? Because Chinese students may not be welcomed in the truest spirits, is what I would say, or I mean, as they were being welcomed earlier. So Indians can be indirect beneficiary, and we actually can get more visa approvals than we would have seen previously. So, a couple of questions are there for HDFC Credila. Let me answer those questions. So, students have asked that if the sanction letter was true for 3 months, so what happens after that if they defer their intake. So guys, please let me ensure all of you, I would like to assure all of you that in case you defer your intake, you please let it know your relationship manager. Please get in touch with him, and we'll be happy to extend that sanction. We might need your updated bank statements just to check recent transactions. That is it, and we'll be happy to extend the validity of that sanction letter. Right? You can use that same sanction letter maybe for your spring 21 intake. So that should not be an issue. Second, again, Robert, there's a very interesting question. Right? I would like you to take it. So, student says that if the universities keep offering digital or hybrid courses even in fall 21, right? So he has this doomsday scenario in his mind, is what I can guess. So, what happens then?
Well,
Do you think something
it's a
happening
very
first?
it's a very
Mm,
it's a very good question from a student, and as many of the other speakers have said, at the moment, all countries are thinking of offering a few subjects or credits online. And, I would advise any student not to enroll for more than one or two subjects online. Number
okay,
one,
okay.
they're not used to online study. It's going to take a long time to adjust and to be totally focused and to get as much support from the institutions overseas.
Mm,
So enrolling for too many subjects, they will be biting off more than they can chew, and they should probably take it one step at a time. The second part of that question is what happens if in the second semester the situation around the world does not improve?
mm,
What are students going to do? Well,
yeah,
that will be a very difficult phase for all of us as education consultants and students, parents, and people like HDFC Credila who's funding. Because how long can a student actually pursue their program online? One semester, two semesters,
yes,
everything is going to be thrown out of gear.
yeah,
Their study plans, even the value for the course they do, their post-study work, the opportunities for even getting residence in those countries, everything will be, completely in disarray.
mm, mm,
Um,
mm,
but I think that question, what the students asked, is a very fair question. We must remember, while we are acting on behalf of students and we are representing students and we are very keen on the welfare of all our students, all these countries, their number one priority is to make sure they can control COVID-19.
mm.
Their citizens and the health of their people are very, very important. Unless they can get it under a decent level of control, unless they can manage the virus, will they really be thinking of opening the borders internationally for students? We must remember there are, I know in Australia and other countries, even states have closed their borders from one state to the other. So unless the state borders open up, the international borders are really not going to open up. It's going to take time. And, my advice is take one or two subjects online. And if it continues for the second semester, then I think students should be able to talk to the university and find out if they can get any sort of a mini qualification for what they have studied, like a graduate certificate or a diploma or something, in case they can't complete the entire program. But it's certainly wait and watch. It's a very interesting situation. And we hope that, by end of 2020 or 2021, we'll find Indian students and international students being welcome in these countries.
Perfect. Very interesting and very intriguing as well at the same time, Robert. So, there is a query. A student has said that U.S. universities, some of universities, they're offering them OF visa, like as considering them as overseas students, and they have said that they can change this visa status to F1 later during the year. Does it make sense? Do you think it's viable option for them?
Well, I mean, I'm just talking, this applies to many countries as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, unless there's a change in the legislation, unless the governments really amend it, let's say for students of 2021 batch, we must see the governments reacting, the overseas governments reacting to this.
Mm.
So, we'll have to wait and watch how we go with that. And as far as the US goes, we must remember we are having a big election in November. And
Mm.
if there is a change of government, I'm not sure, but if there would be a change of government, would it be pro-international students? Would they be pro-India? All those factors can really affect the students over the next 6 to 12 months.
Absolutely.
Yep, yep, yep. So that's precisely about it. And uh, like again, students have been asking, and Robert, you have been very precise in stating that, take as many, as little or as less subjects as you can, maybe not more than a couple of subjects online, right? Try to, land up to the shows, right? If you really want to get that experience. So, Nirupama, there is a interesting thing again which has come up with the students, right? So some of the students have actually written that when do you think visa offices will start working, right? I do not know. I really expect them to start working from tomorrow onwards. But do you have any head start on this?
Unfortunately, as much as you know, Hitesh, I also know the same thing. The US embassies, we did get some update that they would be functioning from July, but unaware of a particular date that they would start working, because right now in some countries, the US embassies have started to operate. But in India, as of now, as we speak, no, we don't have information on that, but we should keep checking on the official websites to see, because that will be the only source of information you or I or any student can get it from. So
Okay, okay,
as we
great.
speak, it's not available. Yes.
It's not. I mean, again, as she said, it's very difficult to comment upon, right? When would the
Yes.
visa, the embassies will start working? But again, we all keep talking to a lot of sources, and we believe that from August or September, August onward, they'll start making some assessment, right? How the COVID situation there in India is, and we do expect that spring 21 season should be good enough for us to take. Okay, so I mean, I have received a couple of questions about UK, right? So if anybody likes to take questions on UK, because the students have categorically asked that US, okay, it's wait and watch. Canada can't very categorically put that it's all in motion, it's very dynamic, and of course we continue to hope for all the good things. How about UK? How is UK going to shape up? Do you think that visas in UK are going to get affected? Students who are thinking of studying in UK universities, do you think that those students should stick to UK, or they should try to check Canada out, as Mr. Shah pointed out? So, what about UK? Do we have any suggestions, information on that?
Yes,
Would
for
anybody want to?
UK,
Yeah. Mr. Vipin, yeah, please.
Yeah, yeah, Vipin.
UK universities like us, many of them have, most of them in fact, they'll be starting September intake, and some of the Russell Group universities, which are very prestigious, they have started rolling out the offer letters for January intake. They have shifted their intake to January. So if somebody is not interested in like starting in September, they can always go in January intake. Like I would name Glasgow as their leads. They have started rolling out the offer letters for January. And moreover, the embassies, the VFS centers have started operating from 6th of July. So they have started taking appointments for that. So that is students, and if border permits, the students will be able to fly in September intake itself, or else in the worst case situation, if there are some safety they concerns, they can shift it to January. And recently, UK announced its graduate immigration route, so they are offering a post-study work visa of 2 years. It has been confirmed. So that is again a very positive news. And the COVID treatment, they mentioned it is a part, it will be covered under the insurance. So that is the first
Okay.
thing what we are seeing, that UK universities are following in fact, every universities are closely monitoring the situation and following the government rules like the social distancing. So even if a student goes there and you are aware that the conditions in India are deteriorating and a lot of cases, new cases are popping up. So even if a student goes there, there are very less probabilities of getting that disease because of the hybrid model. And they'll be able to attend the physical classes in a like small groups, 15 to 20 students. Moreover, the healthcare facilities in the UK are very good, and many of the
Okay.
universities. There is one more addition that the UK universities, sorry, government has announced that the student has to undergo 14 days mandatory quarantine. And many of the universities are saying that they will provide the accommodation during that time, and they'll be providing a good support to them. So all of this situation, I see that UK would be a very good option, and they are like adopting the UK universities, and the government are adopting to the situation and responding to the situation very well. And there is a huge interest in amongst the Indian students to go for UK because they are getting 1 year masters. The cost of education would be less, and they are able to enroll in high rank universities. UK has 18 universities amongst the 18.
Vipin, do you think that because of the situation, you mentioned that of course UK is a very popular destination, but do you think that the employment opportunities are not going to take a hit in UK because of the situation? How do you think employment opportunities for students who will be graduating in say 21 or maybe 22 are going to shape up?
Basically, whenever there is a recession or the conditions like this, a student should work on developing the skill set, because we are not sure till what time this condition will prevail. So this time, by the time the student graduates, there will be a drastic improvement. What I understand, because there are a lot of things, lot of developments on the vaccination front and medical advancements. So what I foresee by that time, like everything is going on. We are sitting here, we are working, and life is going on, and we are adapting to the new regular. So why not? Why should the education sector suffer? Why the students degrees should suffer? So what I think by the time student graduates, there are a lot of there will be a lot of opportunities, and things are opening up. Like in UK, there is no lockdown as of now. Things are slowly have been in regular touch with the students, so the things are back to normal. So the employment opportunities, and one more thing, I would like to hear that UK has gone for Brexit. So earlier we were not at level playing field with the EU nations. The employers preferred European candidates, but now we are at a level playing field, and we are getting 2 more years. The students will be getting 2 more years to search for a job. So, and if you check the skill shortage lists like data analytics, computer science, so civil engineering, mechanical. So, I think there will be good opportunities once the student graduates. So this time should be used to upgrade the skills, which are very much important when it comes to employment.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Vipin. Vipin continues to say that UK continues to be an attractive destination for Indian students, right? And students primarily need to upskill themselves, right, for upcoming employment. My next question is very, again, it essentially distinguishes Canada from other countries, right? And of course, I mean, question goes to Karan. That tell me, sir, that especially in Canada, students do, this part-time work, right, is one of the huge, I would say, parameters, or it attracts a lot of Indian students because students get to work while studying, right, and they make quite a good amount of money while studying itself, and many of them actually happen or end up sponsoring their own education, and especially subsequent years. So because of this COVID situation, it's very important because a lot of students who come to us, they come up with this idea that we need maybe funds only for the first year, and we'll arrange subsequent funds while working in Canada, right? And so, how do you think this is going to work out during this pandemic?
Fair enough. So it's an excellent question from students' perspective. Definitely, yes. Most of the students who get attracted towards Canada as a further study destination, they've got two major reasons. First of all, they can work part-time 20 hours a week. That's something that most of the countries do offer as well. But eventually, they get to settle there, and that is the biggest source of attraction for Canada. Now, as far as we've got our students in Canada who are in Canada right now, we've been in touch with them to know the actual ground situation, what is happening in Canada. So situation even in the big cities of Toronto, Calgary, Montreal, or Vancouver, the situations haven't affected a lot of part-time jobs, to be honest. If you are competent enough, that is the brutal reality, and that is happening in India as well. Even with the part-time or full-time jobs, if you are competent enough, you have not been thrown out. In fact, Canadian government in the month of towards the very last week of April, they even announced that for this entire semester of summer, that is from May beginning till August 10, till 31st August, most of the students can also work full time even while they are studying
Okay.
if they get a special no objection certificate from their institutions. So, for
Hmm,
instance,
hmm.
if you are working for 20 hours, now you would be allowed to work for 40 hours, provided you are working in the healthcare sector, in any of the sectors allied to healthcare industry that concerns even the supply chain sector of the healthcare management or the food supply chain management in the healthcare sector. So, if you are working in these allied sectors of healthcare, the government is supporting you by permitting you to work double the duration than you were actually permitted to. So part-time jobs have not suffered a lot, to be honest. And luckily for the students in Canada and for us, the curve seems to have flattened a bit in Canada.
Yeah.
Remember when there were 53,000 odd cases in Canada, India was somewhere around 18 to 19,000. Today we are around 7 lakh cases, and Canada is still around 60 to 65,000 cases. So they have managed to control this a lot. And the worst impacted province in Canada was Quebec.
Yeah.
Uh, and Quebec is something that most of the students have a secondary thought for. Their primary importance and prominence goes towards Ontario and British Columbia. So even Quebec and Ontario have managed to control this pandemic situation to a great extent. The parks are opening up, the schools are opening up, and gradually, yes, the things are taking shape in a very positive manner in Canada, even for part-time jobs.
Okay. So do you think the cost of education might go up, cost of living might go up, uh, especially
Not
for students who
exactly,
are already there?
but yes, cost of education in some of the colleges they have increased their fees by around 500 or $1,000, and that is something
Hmm.
that happens in Canada every year or a couple of years. It is just a part of routine increment in the tuition fees, and it is not because of this pandemic situation that there has been an exorbitant rise in the tuition fees of the students.
And do you also think that Canada or some of the provinces, right, especially Quebec was, more welcoming for Indian students, right? Despite of that French language condition that they have. So do you think that immigration rules also might be tweaked in because of this pandemic, or the students might continue to think that yes, Canada is an attractive destination and we might get PR easily? I mean, or it's more forthcoming as compared to other countries.
Right. So for the phase of 2020 to 2022, for the phase of these 3 years, Canada had planned to welcome around 1.35 million immigrants, up from 7.5 the target of 7.5 million immigrants in 3 years. They actually advised it to almost double the target, and the CRS point requirement for almost all the provinces, for Alberta or even Saskatchewan or Ontario, has gone down drastically. So initially, where it used to be 473, 475, it is now come down to even 340 for Alberta. So the immigration rules have tweaked a lot in our favor, to be honest. Now they are
Okay,
going to
okay.
progressing towards the immigrants.
No, that's a definitely silver lining that immigration rules have been tweaked in our favor. That's excellent, and we continue to hear good news about Canada. Robert, I think one of the biggest destinations that we have not discussed so far, and you being there in Australia, I think you are the best person to advise the students who are planning to go to Australia, maybe New Zealand. How do you think Australia will pan out? What would your suggestions, your advice to students who had planned for Australia, who are planning for Australia and who are waiting as of now, and maybe students who had applied to other countries like Canada, US, or UK, and who might think Australia as a alternate destination? Do you think it all makes sense? You can have a backdrop of what is happening in Australia.
Yeah, let me start by saying both countries, Australia and New Zealand, have done extremely well. They've got the lowest COVID-19 infection in the world. If we look at New Zealand, they almost eliminated the virus.
Yeah,
They've got
yeah.
very few cases in single digits per day, one case, two cases. In Australia, the total cases for the last 4 months has been 7,900 only.
Hmm.
And we've had less than 100 deaths because of the virus. But most of the people who unfortunately passed away were in aged care, aged people above 80, 85, 90. They were the most affected.
We
So
don't get
being
many people at the age of 90. That's a trouble.
Yes, exactly. And being island countries, Australia is an island and New Zealand's an island, the virus is very much under control. The health systems are fantastic. They're doing massive amounts of testing in car parks, in shopping centers, on the streets, in hospitals. And I think the people are cooperating very well. Now, Australia is about to trial a new program in the next 2 months where they've given the responsibility to each state. Now, for example, the state of South Australia, the state of Queensland, the state of Australian Capital Territory, they're all got a plan to bring in students on a pilot program. The state is taking responsibility, the universities are taking responsibility, and I believe these students are about to arrive in the month of August. Maybe starting off with 300 students or 1,000 students, so they are trialing it. As Vipin said, everyone who's coming in will go through a 2-week quarantine where the university is taking full responsibility and the state government is taking full responsibility. So we believe that students will be back on campus. The students who are currently studying in Australia, all the school children have gone back to school. All schools are open. And this semester, the university students, somewhere the university starts by July, August. We believe somewhere by September, there will be face-to-face contact classes for students already in the country. But definitely, because the virus is so less and not a massive problem, I think we could find that Australia will take the lead in welcoming international students, which are already trialing. And if it's successful, we could have a bigger batch around November. Now, about students changing destinations, Hitesh, what you asked me, I've got a lot of inquiries from people who have I-20s, particularly from the US. And because the future is a little uncertain, the cases are very high and the election coming up, and also the massive unemployment. And there are people who are changing over, whose original plan was USA or some other country. They've been shifting over to Australia and New Zealand. And most importantly, as I said earlier, as a parent, if you look at the 5 English-speaking countries and you look at where will my son, see, talking about career, talking about opportunities, part-time work is great, but the first priority today is safety of my son or daughter. In which country would they have the least probability of getting the infection? And I think that's where Australia and New Zealand will do very well. And because the Australian government is stood up to China and wanted an inquiry, the Chinese government is telling students not to go to Australia, telling Chinese students not to come to Australia, which is again a great marketing opportunity and a great opportunity for Indian students.
Right. No, very aptly put. And you think that employment opportunities for Indian students would remain same, or you think, I mean, they may be even better because Chinese students would be out of competition?
Well, Indian students are very enterprising students. They're very smart. They're very hardworking. They take up any jobs. They work day and night. There are decent employment opportunities. You can work on campus and off campus. You get paid very well. As Manish said, if you're in the health sector and you're in the essential services, you can work full time. You can work full time during semester. So I believe Indian students will do well. Even if you look at migration, year after year, India is the largest skilled migrant in the nation, contributing to migration in Australia and New Zealand and Canada, and they will continue to do that. So it's a great opportunity in these countries.
Fantastic. Thanks, Robert. I mean, it was really motivating. I mean, very reassuring, especially students who are applying for Australia. Nirupam, I'll come to you. We continue to get a lot of queries about students who are already in US. So, do they need to be scared of anything? Because some of course, I mean, employment opportunities current season I mean, it's going to take a hit for sure. We all know that, right? But it is not as bad as we thought it would be maybe a couple of months back, because a couple of months back it was like doomsday, right? Nobody's going to get jobs. Everybody's going to get laid. Every brown skinned man will be thrown out and all that, right? So students had all sort of queries 2 months back. But now, of course, it's getting, people are getting their sanity back. So, what do you think students who are already in US, right, or maybe other countries, who are already studying, right, uh, classroom studying? I mean, they were having classroom studies say 3 months back. Now, some of them would have opted for digital discourses and all. So, do they need to be scared of? I mean, do you think that employment opportunities be will continue to get affected in this season, or do you think next season should be good enough, or some of them are actually asking, should we come back?
Uh, Definitely, students who are in the US right now who would have finished 1 or 2 semesters by now, and looking at the employment opportunity for 2021, if somebody who's looking probably will be graduating maybe this year or maybe sometime next year, there could be challenges for these students to find employment, proper employment for these students. But as Mr. Roberts said, Indian students are really very enterprising, and they kind of really look, make everything possible to get into a good job. And we recommend students to stay connected with their course, to stay connected with the possibility of finding a good employment, is because US definitely will always have a lot of opportunities for students. It's just that it's just a phase right now. It's just for the timing. I think for a year or year and a half, or as much as maybe 2 years, unemployment would be a matter of concern, and it should definitely be a matter of concern for students. So we recommend students that in case they really are in a very difficult situation, they might want to look at other opportunities. They should, because we don't want students to be unemployed after having spent so much of money on their education to get back the return of investment. So I think, yes, the answer is definitely students should be concerned about unemployment in this year, but they should also at the same time be connected to their industries or to the subject areas that they look at studying.
And how do you think the universities are going to, cope up with this? Because I'm sure, because of the students are unable to reach out to US shows, universities are again bleeding, right? So how do you think that universities are going to make up for you? You can answer for US, and I'm sure Vipin can come up for UK, right? Because we continue to get a lot of queries about UK.
Yeah, for the US universities right now, of course, for incoming students, they still say that by the time they graduate, and mostly students who are looking for courses that are internship imbibed, or probably students who would have, OPTs as part of their courses and all of that, we recommend students that they should be considered to do that, because universities take that as a responsibility. That students who take up these courses should be given that exposure. So it's all to do about what kind of course they're doing, which university they are going, what has been the employment record of the university, over the years, and how these universities are planning for their career plans for the students. So I think a lot has to be students have to be aware of is these things, rather than just as a destination to know what the destination has to offer. So I think incoming for the incoming students, a lot of universities would be banking on their graduate employability ratios in the past, and how they've been engaging students with their OPTs, and if not the CPTs, the OPTs basically, which is part of the course. So students kind of should be willing to take up such opportunities. Yeah.
Perfect, right? So, and very rightly put by Nirupama, that students, you need to think about the university, right? Destination is one, of course, broadly categorized. Robert described it very beautifully about Australia and New Zealand. If you have serious health concerns, if your parents are kind of paranoid about your health status, then maybe Australia and New Zealand happens to be better at, because of the low number of corona infections. But if you feel like doing a day level stunt, maybe higher the risk, because the reward, maybe I would say US rewards would be the highest, but of course since we do not have much information about it, so the risks are equally high, right? When it comes to Canada, of course I will take a view from Mr. Kanan as well, but about UK piece, Vipin, what do you think that UK universities would have changed? You think that there will be more forthcoming, or do you think that the certain subjects or certain, like STEM courses are going to do better, or you think that certain universities would be, better places to go? That students should only target maybe top-notch universities, not fall for the lower-end ones. So, what suggestion would you have for students who are planning for UK and maybe for Germany?
Okay, for UK, if you check, there are the total number of active cases are around 2.4 lakhs, and UK universities, as I have said, they have moved to hybrid model, and if students are unable to travel, they can start online and they can join in between as well. So I think students can, if they are very, their parents are too skeptical about sending them for this September intake, as many of the universities are offering January intake, so they have the chance to defer their intake to January. It is which I think there is only 4 months gap. The student can monitor the situation in much better manner. So I think UK, since they are offering a January intake in almost all the universities except for the top ranked Russell Group universities, students can take a call that they can, whether they would like to really go ahead with September, or they can go ahead with January intake as well.
Okay.
Yeah, to add to what Mr. Vipin mentioned about UK right now, I think as I mentioned for US, UK also students should be looking at programs which would give them a future prospect. So there are a lot of universities that are offering internship-based programs, and these internships would either
Yeah.
be paid internship or unpaid internships. So basically, students would be interested, and I think as counselors, we are responsible to tell students that these are a great opportunity for you if they kind of choose such programs to help them find employment in future. So I think these kind of courses will help a lot of students in the future when they look at employment.
Of course, of course, of course, very rightly put. And my request to, so these are tough times, students, viewers, these are definitely tough times. I would recommend you to go back to a counselor and ask them hard questions, right? And you have to be, you have every right to be very frank, very blunt with them. We have a group of panelists today, right? And they're all domain experts, right? They come from very well established platforms. So if you have any further queries, you can always go back to them, right? You can of course have a right to me. I'll ensure that your queries are diverted to the esteemed panel that we have. As far as I got a couple of queries about loan things. So let me assure all of you that at HDFC Credila, of course we treat all the countries alike. There are several parameters that we configure, that we check before sanctioning a loan per se. So nobody is at a disadvantage. We do check a lot of parameters, so it is not up to anybody to speculate. My request is to apply and check your eligibility for a loan, right? Please check your eligibility, whether you want to take that loan or you don't want to take that loan. It doesn't matter. The eligibility check is absolutely free of cost. We don't charge anything to check your eligibility. So should always check your eligibility, right? You check your eligibility for that particular course, for that particular college, for that particular country, right? And if there is any anomaly, you will have ample time to correct it, right? And I always advocate for education loans, right? You should always go ahead and apply to as many lenders as you can in the market. Try to get the best deal, right? Some of you have asked for rate of interest. So let me be very clear, guys. Let me assure you that we offer the most competitive rate of interest available in the market. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I myself want you guys to explore, lenders in the market. Go out. I mean, it doesn't cost, right? You can sit online, you can apply to a few financiers, and you'll come to know about the rate and the services which are being offered. Only one suggestion that I would like to make when it comes to financing part is, these are tough times. Liquidity is not exactly in the position that we would have wanted it to be. Many lenders who are in the nascent stage, who don't have that backing, who don't have that brand associated with them, they may have tough times raising money, right? And education loan is not about first tranche, right? So normally we sanction loans up to 40 or 50 lakh rupees, and students come back to us in 3 or 4 different tranches. So don't judge an education loan by the first tranche, that you have taken the first tranche, now it's over. No, it's not over. It's just started, right? So some of the lenders that you see in the market, they might actually evaporate in days to come. they might find it difficult to lend. They might not have the money to lend, right? They may not have money available at the rates that they would have got it earlier. So they may face challenges. So these tough times, try to go for established players. We have called the most established players in the market today for as our panelists, right? Because we want best of the suggestions and advices for you. So similarly for your financial needs, try to approach the best ones. Don't go to fly by night operators. Okay, I have a very yeah.
Hitesh, I have a question. Maybe you can take this as a question from the student community. If I may ask you a question, is what is Credila's opinion for online courses, funding for online courses? If students would want to start online, so what is your take or probably your opinion for students who are seeking loan assistance for starting online courses? So we want to get some inputs from you, Hitesh.
Sure. Thanks. I mean, I like to be questioned. Right? Finally, I get a question. So, so see, the thing is, at Credila, we are not averse to funding, digital programs to start with. If the first semester happens to be online, we are not averse to funding it for sure, right? So we have prepared a questionnaire, about 8 to 10 questions that we'll put across the student. See, the student has to understand, in case he doesn't get a visa, right? I mean, the cost is his, right? He will have to bear the interest part of it, right? Interest principal will have to be paid back to the company, right? So suppose if he has taken 10 lakh rupees towards first semester, and the semester is being discussed online, and if he doesn't get visa, then he'll have to pay us back 10 lakh rupees plus the interest which was levied upon, right? So there's a sort of risk that we have. So that is why we understand, or we try to study the student's profile, the kind of course, the kind of college, the kind of university that he goes to, and we always go back to a esteemed panel like you to check. Suppose your student has opted for Carnegie Mellon, right, or maybe Arizona State, right, and he says that I want to go for the first semester digital. So then we do a kind of study bit, and we check whether the university has enough clauses, where some of the universities have actually offered to pay back in case visa doesn't come, right? So they have even offered reimbursements. So we are comfortable in those cases. Wherein the universities are not offered reimbursements, then we kind of tutor the student that, do you understand there is an interest cost, right? Okay. So don't take money for the sake of it. And as a matter of fact, we have not received many requests for disbursement. We have received inquiries. Students are asking that, would you fund for online program? We say yes, we may fund. Please put in a formal request. So we have received some 4 or 5 formal requests from 6,500 sanctioned cases that I have for US alone, right? So I think India's parents would have said that beta agar if you don't get visa then it's all gone. So please take your steps very quickly. Thanks. So I'll go to the last thing, right? And again, I mean, I got many queries about it, and it'll also help me as a lender, right? So it's like, do we have specific subjects, right, which a student should opt for? Say, suppose we all know that STEM courses, Indians have been preferring STEM courses for quite some time, and I would like to invite Kanan for this. Mr. Shah, if you can tell us that Canada hosts a lot of programs, right? And the students have done well in hospitality. They have done well even in culinary arts, for that matter, right? All sort of STEM courses, in which ways have been doing well. So, do you think, because of the situation, some subjects or courses would do better than the other, and which subjects would they be?
All right. So as far as Canada is concerned, in terms of the program choices, the top 3 program choices that always have remained for the Indian students are engineering, that caters to all categories of engineering, like mechanical engineering. IT is the most preferred program for the Indian students who are planning to go to Canada. Then would be mechanical engineering, then would be chemical and petroleum and all other categories of engineering. Even civil engineering comes in the top 5 categories of engineering. Then the next lot that you get is a lot from the commerce and management students, either after 12th or after their graduation in India. And then the next lot that you get in the huge chunk, that is from the healthcare sector of the students. So these 3 sectors have remained unchanged even during these times. So yes, hospitality is again one of the promising sectors that students prefer to opt in Canada. automation and programs related to robotics are gaining a lot of impetus in terms of the Indian students as far as applying to Canada is concerned. So more or less, I guess the top three of engineering, management, and healthcare have remained unchanged, either pre-COVID-19 or current COVID-19, or even after the situation normalizes. I don't see much of paradigm shift happening between these three segments.
Sure.
Part-time or full-time jobs, this has been the preference. I mean, the survey that we do here with our local students, these are the numbers that even we are getting currently.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Robert, I'll pose the same question with you, and I'll add an addendum to that. Right. One, the first part of the question is, as do you know specific subjects or streams that the student should opt for in these troubled times? And I'll take this further, that would streams affect the immigration regulations of the country? Because we know for sure that in some countries governments do publish the requirements in various industries, right? So do you think because of this pandemic situation, government or the authorities can reject that requirement, and that the student should look after or look ahead to some specific streams for to get PR readily available, or maybe towards employment?
Yeah, I'll just add to what Manish said. The top 3 or 4 programs for Indian students have been engineering, IT, and business related programs. However, we are beginning to see an increase in the number of applications for health science and allied health programs. So nursing programs, medical laboratory science, microbiology, biotechnology, genetics. There's a lot of interest on laboratory oriented courses now, and the numbers will go up. That's very natural because the vaccines have to come out, the infections are going to come by all along. So we're finding that.
Okay.
It's what I find is every year Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and all other countries come up with a list of what we call the skilled occupation list, where occupations have been in demand. And as I said earlier, the maximum number of skilled migrants to Australia, New Zealand, and even Canada is from India. And yes, students who are doing STEM related programs, students who are doing IT, nursing, medical science, microbiology, medical laboratory science, accounting, they are going to be in a bigger demand than perhaps people doing more generic courses. So what we advise our students, even before they leave India, is we ask them a simple question, and we know the answer, but we still ask them the question, what would your future plan be? Do you plan to return to India and take over your dad's business? Then maybe a master of business is good. But if people say, I would like to study, work, and settle, then we tell them to go online and look at skilled occupation list which these countries publish. And again, it predominantly goes on to the STEM and health related programs, as I said. And Indians are doing very well in getting the maximum number of migration places in these countries.
Fantastic, fantastic. So he made a very Robert made a very, very pertinent point, viewers, and you have to be very cognizant of it. That please go to that occupation list, because every country wants a specific industry to flourish, right? And there would be gaps. I'm sure every country will have gaps in certain industries, and they would like those immigrants to occupy those vertical, those industries. Like US wants those tech graduates to come up. Robert mentioned that Australia would appreciate, of course, STEM is evergreen, and at the same time, health professionals will be in great demand. And in the students being very enterprising in nature, right? So they would occupy, the maximum slots. But then, I mean, somebody asked me about biotech in UK. Is it a viable option? Is it a good option? Or you think, it's an upcoming thing?
If you check the recent developments, the companies which are working on vaccination, a lot of them are from the UK. Like there's a company AstraZeneca, which is UK Swedish-based company, and even Oxford is living. Oxford University is forerunner in this race. So it is a very good industry to join, and in UK. And if the student completes their education from there, there are a lot of job opportunities also in these particular fields, because earlier there were no too many takers in this field. But since of this pandemic outbreak, a lot of people are seeing interest, and they are able to foresee that biotechnology, pharmaceuticals in particular, that those domains will be in much demand. And
Okay.
I think this will be a very good option if the students are interested in taking up these programs, pharmaceuticals, biotechnology.
Fantastic. Nirupama, your thoughts? I mean, US is all about STEM. Or do you think that there are other subjects that the students can look forward to during the pandemic?
I would go with my colleagues here, where when they mentioned that STEM is definitely one of the most promising programs for Indian students. But I think the healthcare programs are picking up a lot of popularity now these days for Indian students, and any healthcare programs in conjunction to having a component of engineering in it is making more prevalence, basically, with choice for students. And I think, yes, business is as normal, since I operate out of Hyderabad, and I see a lot of interest. I think 90% of students go for engineering programs, and the top of being computer science and IT. But then, of course, we've definitely seen a little spike in healthcare programs, especially with pharmaceutical sciences or healthcare management, health administration. So such programs, I think we should be looking. We are also doing a continuous research on the new programs that US universities are coming up with, keeping in mind that these could pick up a lot of popularity in days to come. So new courses are also being developed by many universities, I think, which will be available for students in the next year onwards. So, of course, students, we should be looking at targeting just not engineering students, but also looking at students from various backgrounds, since STEM definitely is one of the most popular programs.
Fantastic. So I think I can summarize it very quickly that STEM courses will continue to rule the roost, right, for most of the countries, right. Robert has very beautifully said that apart from that, you should also look at the gaps which are there in that particular country. You can have a look at that skill occupation list which is available for Australia and New Zealand, right, and healthcare services, as rightly put by Vipin as well, right, later on, that it's an upcoming trend. Right, Mr. Shah also mentioned that health services, and then even for that matter, hospitality might take a beating in short term. But of course, I mean, Canada being such a resilient destination, I'm sure it's going to bounce back. Right. I think it's time, guys. Thank you so much, viewers. We have tried to take most of your questions. There are still a lot of queries which are there on my screen. I will try to, get the same queries to the panel. I will try to get those answered for you. If any viewer wants to get in touch with the panelist, we'll share the details. This webinar will be available on our platform as well, right? And my best wishes to all the viewers, all the students who aspire to go abroad for their higher studies. Maybe some of you would have deferred to Spring 21 or maybe Fall 21. And as Mr. Shah said, we would definitely look forward to some action in Canada, right, in by July end. And right, like Robert mentioned, that it's very important for all of you to think before you leave, whether you want to settle here, whether you want to come back and join your dad's business. Right, you have to be pretty clear in your mind. Then you make a choice, right? Thank you so much, esteemed panelists. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your suggestion. Thank you for your advice. And HDFC Credila and all the viewers and students are extremely thankful.